For 15 years, I was the family's invisible backbone, the one who gave, sacrificed, and silently endured. But when my mother's 60th birthday party came around, something inside me finally broke. I disappeared without a trace, leaving behind the chaos I had spent years managing. But as my family searched for me, they realized I wasn't just gone. I had disappeared for good. What they didn't know was that my disappearance was only the beginning of a long-buried secret. The real question was, would they ever get me back, or had they lost me forever? For 15 years, I had been the family's go-to person, the one they could rely on without hesitation. My role? To be their free nanny. A silent, unsung hero in the background, taking care of everyone's needs but my own. It wasn't just about babysitting the children. No, it went deeper than that. I was the one who picked up the pieces when they fell apart, who filled in when plans fell through. Every event, every gathering, every moment in the family's chaotic life seemed to circle back to me. The thing about family is that they never really ask if you're okay. They never ask if you're happy or fulfilled. They simply assume you will be there. No questions asked, no complaints voiced. They know you love them, and that's enough. But over time, that love gets suffocated by the weight of duty. It all started so innocently. When my youngest sister had her first child, I was there. It wasn't a big deal. It was just what families did for each other. But then it continued another niece, another nephew, and suddenly, I was the designated caretaker. I was the one who dropped everything to rush to their aid. I became the unofficial nanny, the one who looked after their kids, cleaned their messes, and ensured that their lives ran smoothly. I didn't mind at first. It was family, after all. But after a decade of sacrifices, I started to feel the cracks forming. The joy I once felt in helping them began to fade. I had no time for myself, no space to follow my own dreams or tend to my own needs. My life became a series of obligations, my wants forgotten, my personal growth stunted. Every birthday, every holiday, every family event, I was there, the one who made sure everything was perfect, while my own life slipped away unnoticed. The sacrifices became bigger, the expectations more relentless. There were no thank yous, no recognition, just the understanding that this was my role, this was my place. The unspoken agreement was clear. I was to be there when needed, without question or complaint. The tension between what I wanted for myself and what they expected of me grew unbearable. Yet, I stayed. Because that's what family does, right? You sacrifice for them. You put your life on hold to make sure there's a smooth and perfect. But that silent agreement was slowly eating away at me. And then came Mom's 60th birthday. It was supposed to be a special occasion. But to me, it became the breaking point. Mom's 60th birthday party was planned for months. There were decorations, a guest list, catering, and the typical family chaos. I was in charge of everything, of course. I didn't mind. It was what I did best. But this time, something felt different. This time, I wasn't just managing the event, I was drowning in it. It started with the invites. I had to make sure everyone was included, and that meant reaching out to distant relatives, old family friends, and of course, making sure the kids' schedules were coordinated. Then came the decorations, making sure the theme was just right, arranging the flowers, and in the midst of it all, cleaning the house because the family simply couldn't get it together. The day before the party, I was up all night, running around, picking up last-minute supplies, and making sure everything would be perfect. I was exhausted, yet no one seemed to notice. They were all too busy with their own lives, their own plans, to realize that I was about to break. But I didn't say anything. I never did. The day of the party arrived, and, as expected, I was the one who set everything up, made sure the food was ready, and greeted the guests as they arrived. I smiled, as always, but this time it felt different. It wasn't just the exhaustion. It was the realization that I had given everything my time, my energy, my youth, and no one had ever stopped to ask what I wanted. No one had ever asked how I was feeling or what I dreamed of. I was so caught up in making sure everything was perfect for everyone else that I had completely forgotten about myself. And as the party went on, I realized I was invisible. No one noticed how tired I was, how much I had given, and how little I had received in return. It was just expected. The children ran around, the adults mingled, and I kept moving like a cog in a machine. But then something snapped. A quiet voice inside me said, "Enough. Enough of being invisible. Enough of being the one who never got the recognition or the rest. Enough of being the family's free nanny without a choice, without a say." I quietly slipped away from the chaos. No one noticed. I didn't announce it. I didn't make a scene. I simply disappeared. When I left, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a destination. I just knew that I couldn't stay any longer. The years of being taken for granted, the silent expectations, had finally broken me. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I needed to live my life, even if it was without them. I left behind everything: the family, the responsibilities, the guilt. For the first time in years, I felt free. But freedom came with its own set of challenges. There were phone calls, messages, and desperate attempts to bring me back. But I ignored them. I needed time away. Time to figure out who I was without the label of nanny attached to my name. The days turned into weeks, and I finally began to understand what I had been missing all these years. I started focusing on my own dreams, my own desires. I went to places I had always wanted to visit, learned new things, and, most importantly, I took time to just be. I had forgotten what it was like to live for myself. But despite the newfound peace, the guilt lingered. How could I just leave them behind? Was it selfish of me to walk away? My mind constantly battled with these questions, but my heart knew the truth. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for people who never truly appreciated what I did. The first few weeks after I left were the hardest. The quiet was deafening. I had spent so many years surrounded by constant noise, children's laughter, the hum of daily life, the endless chatter of my family, that when I was finally alone, it felt like a strange void. I remember sitting in my apartment, staring at the walls, unsure of what to do with myself. I had never been alone like this. Sure, I had moments of solitude over the years, but I had always been a part of something. I had always been needed. And now, there was nothing but the silence, which both soothed and unsettled me. I turned off my phone, the one lifeline to the chaos I had left behind. I didn't want to hear their voices, their pleas for me to return. I didn't want to be reminded of the guilt that hung over me like a cloud. For the first time, I allowed myself to breathe freely, to exist without being someone else's caretaker. But the relief was bittersweet. It didn't take long before the messages began. They came in waves: texts, calls, emails, and even visits to my apartment. My sister Sarah was the first to show up. She came with a basket of fruit, pretending everything was fine. "Mom's been asking for you," she said, her voice shaking. "Everyone's worried. Please, come back. It's not the same without you." I didn't know what to say. What could I say? The words that echoed in my head were harsh and unspoken. "You never asked me what I needed. You never saw me. You just took and took and took." But I didn't say that. Instead, I smiled faintly and told her I needed time. I told her I wasn't ready to come back, that I needed space to figure things out. The truth was, I didn't know what I wanted yet. I didn't know who I was without the weight of family expectations crushing me. But I was starting to realize that I could be someone else. I could be more than just the family's free nanny, and I was beginning to like the idea of that. Part 5. The guilt that never fades. Weeks turned into months, and I slowly adapted to my new life. I found new hobbies, new interests. I started to build my own identity, one that didn't revolve around the needs of my family. I spent my mornings reading, my afternoons exploring new neighborhoods, and my evenings taking long walks in the park, just to clear my mind. But even in the peace of my newfound independence, the guilt never completely disappeared. I thought about them, often the children I had raised as if they were my own, my siblings who had never seen the toll it had taken on me, my mother who had always assumed I would be there. One evening, as I sat in a coffee shop, a message from my mother appeared on my phone. It was simple, just a few words. I miss you. Please come home. The message was a dagger to my heart. I hadn't realized how much I missed her too. But that didn't change the fact that I was still angry. Angry at the years of invisible labor, at the constant demand for my time and energy, at the expectation that I would always be there without question. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I turned the phone over and stared out the window, watching the world go by. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go back and fall back into the same patterns. Back home, my disappearance had caused more chaos than anyone could have expected. No one truly understood why I had left. They assumed I was just being dramatic, that I would return once the storm of my emotions passed. But the reality was much harder for them to accept. Mum, especially, struggled with the absence of her constant helper. She had always relied on me, and now she was forced to face the weight of everything I had done for her over the years. The house was in disarray without my help. The kids felt lost without me, and no one knew how to fill the gap I had left behind. For the first time, the family saw what it was like without me. They saw the void I had filled, the sacrifices I had made without ever asking for recognition. And they started to feel it, the guilt, the shame, the realization that they had taken me for granted. Sarah reached out again, asking if we could talk. This time, she was more earnest, more sincere. She apologized for the years of expectations and for not recognizing my struggles sooner. She told me she understood why I left, but I still wasn't ready to forgive. It wasn't until my mother called that I finally agreed to meet with them. I wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't know if I was ready to confront the years of resentment I had buried inside me. But something inside me urged me to face it, to face them. I walked into the family home with my heart pounding in my chest. The familiar scent of my mother's cooking filled the air, but it didn't comfort me the way it once had. Instead, it reminded me of everything I had left behind. Mum was sitting at the kitchen table, her face etched with worry. When she saw me, her face softened, and for a moment, I saw the woman who had raised me, the woman I had loved unconditionally. But the years of resentment still lingered between us. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't realize what I was doing to you. I didn't know how much you were giving up. I didn't know how to respond. I had waited so long for this moment, for the acknowledgement of everything I had done, that now that it was here, I felt numb. The anger still simmered inside me, but it was wrapped in a layer of sadness. "I don't think you ever really understood," I said, my voice trembling. "I was never just your helper, Mom. I was your daughter. I needed you too, but you never saw that." The silence that followed was heavy. There was no excuse for what had happened. No words could undo the years of neglect, the years I had sacrificed for a family that never saw me. The confrontation with my family was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the most necessary. It was the beginning of the healing process, not just for me, but for them as well. Over time, they began to understand the depth of my sacrifices and the toll it had taken on me. And I began to understand that forgiveness wasn't about excusing their actions, it was about freeing myself from the burden of resentment. I still hadn't fully forgiven them, and maybe I never would. But I was learning to let go of the anger that had held me captive for so long. I was learning to heal, to rebuild the life I had lost. As the months went by, we slowly began to repair our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension, moments when the old patterns threatened to resurface. But we were trying, all of us. And that was enough. I wasn't the same person who had left that party. I had grown, changed, and learned to stand up for myself. I had learned to prioritize my needs, to recognize my worth outside of the roles I had played for so many years. And I was finally starting to live for me. I wasn't just someone's daughter, someone's caretaker. I was me, an individual with dreams and desires, with the right to live my own life. And though the journey wasn't easy, I knew that I had made the right decision. I had taken back control of my life, and I was no longer defined by the expectations of others.